I want to talk to those who are lost. I want to talk to those who know deep down that there is something they are looking for, something that is missing, but you don't know what it is. Because I think that there is something that unites many of us, something that makes us similar to each other in a strange way and different from other people who do not suffer from this. When I think of the people who do not quite know who they are, who are missing a piece of themselves in some way, the way in which we manifest that fundamental lack varies a lot. Some people have addictions, sometimes to the point of losing everything. Then there is the borderline personality people, the depressed people. Some of us are anxious, constantly overwhelmed. Some get sick all the time or have some unexplainable chronic condition they cannot get control of. Some of us have trauma, some have OCD. And of course, there is the immense world of those of us with ADHD. I don't quite know how to express it, but I think that there is something that connects all of these things. There are a million expressions of this, so many different problems, and so many different levels of gravity of the manifestation of this problem. But something is the same in all of this. We share something, you see, some fundamental way in which we are all similarly lost. We have this sensation that something isn't quite right. There is something that is wrong. Many of us have searched for an allergy or some strange disease. We go to doctors and therapists and healers of all kinds in search of some answer. And sometimes our physical problems get fixed, but that wrongness, it does not go away. I think that many conditions are just interactions of the same thing with our own proclivities, personalities, and life history. This is why someone may end up with psoriasis, another person with panic attacks, another with ADHD, and another with burnout. It's not that these things aren't real, they are real, but they are manifestations with the same root cause at the base. At least that is what I sense. When I look at my life, I'm happily married. I have 2 healthy, happy kids. I have a profession. I have a grown-up career. And I know people who don't have any of that, who are so unstable that they cannot so much as feed themselves properly. Our problems seem completely different, and perhaps they are. But I think that the problem I have is somehow fundamentally the same as that person. There is something that connects us deeply. I'm not saying that the cause of all these things is always the same. Yes, a person could be unlucky and have a failure in their dopamine system, and this is why they have ADHD, or their serotonin system, and that's why they have depression. Or they could indeed have an allergy, and you could fix these things, and suddenly their lives are fixed. But you and I know that this is not true for a lot of people. So many people are constantly searching for what is wrong with them. Doctors and therapies and life change after life change, and things seem to improve, but something at the root, something is still wrong, and it keeps coming back. Those of us with the unsolvable problems, with the overwhelming sense of wrongness and having no idea how to make it better. The image I have is as if there was the true me, and then I'm living my life partially in the true me and partially outside. There is a dislocation, you see. And I know this sounds very spiritual, but I think that at the root, there is something spiritual about this. I suspect that in some way, I had been somehow misaligned with my dharma, or something is not quite pointed in the right direction. So life in large measure felt like a fight. Now, this is not true of my marriage. Everything was always so smooth there. My story with my husband, Greg, is exactly the opposite of what I'm describing. It is something that just fits and grows naturally, and growing it is natural. My kids as well. But in my professional life, for example, there was a lot of struggle. It's as if things take too much effort. And yet I sometimes turn away and it all just seems to fall into place on its own. But it is beyond my family and profession. It's as if something is severely wrong anyway. I don't know. When I think about those who are lost, people that seem so much more lost than I am, people who sometimes are lost in every possible dimension in their lives, it is so easy to look at them and think that they suffer from a different problem than I do. I have a sense of wrongness. Something isn't quite right, but their situation is often objectively not right. And we look and see, come on, their problems are real, while mine are just imagined. But the more I look at this, the more people I know who come to me with their problems, so much suffering in so many different ways, a million diagnoses. But I think at the root, what is wrong with so many of us, with all of us who feel in some sense lost, is the same issue. We lack the same thing. Do you know what it is? Look at how we fix ourselves. So many of us turn to esoteric things. Some of us turn to religion completely or some other profound spiritual practice. And many times that is precisely what works. It did in my case. In spite of all I'm saying, I'm nowhere nearly as lost as I was. In fact, one could say I'm actually quite found. But I know what it is like to despair because I cannot stabilize myself enough, because I cannot shake a fundamental sense of wrongness. I had that for decades. I had this so strong that I had a keen sense that I was, in fact, dying. You know, there are so many people who feel this way, but most people have more problems than I do. It was amazing to contend with this problem being who I was. I mean, for many years, I had a lot of mundane problems. I have ADHD, which is quite hard. I didn't know how to manage money, so I had huge anxiety. And I also had severe untreated trauma and all of the consequences of that, plus a stressful profession. But little by little, by sheer force of will and enormous amounts of research, I managed to get all of these things under control. I really did, you know. I know so much about personal finances. You have no idea how much I know about the US tax code. And I managed to get my ADHD so much in control that I started to have the opposite problem because I worked so much. And finally, I discovered the trauma I had, and I treated that. All of these things I did with crazy intensity. It is incredible to look at one's life and think, I have real love. I am married to the love of my life, someone I not only love, but someone I'm seriously attracted to and who loves me back. I have healthy children I love, and they're happy and easy. I have a good profession with great stability and interesting challenges and a lot of flexibility. I have friends, and even my health is getting better and better. All the problems dropping one by one, and every problem that dropped revealing what I was truly lacking. I lacked knowledge of the ultimate truth. I want to explain this precisely because I could say my problem was that I didn't know God. And some of you will be satisfied because you understand how someone who lacks God somehow lacks a fundamental thing. But some of you will be turned off by this, and I'm actually more similar to you because I don't think having a specific God, a religion, I don't think any of this is necessary. So bear with me a minute while I try to make this point as well as I can. I dropped one by one the things that gave me trouble, but I was never able to shake the sense of wrongness, the fundamental instability, the idea that I was sick, in some way actually sick to a level that would kill me. And why life seemed so hard? Why was it so hard? Was it my ADHD? But it didn't fit, you see. I had this enormous sensation that I had a calling and I was not in it. And I was going to die not being able to reach it. It is so easy to mistake this because of actual problems. You see, if a person has money anxiety, it is very hard to sense so deeply that the problem is that the person is somehow not divinely aligned in some esoteric way. It's much more simple to think that the issue is the money. Even more so if the person has an addiction or if the person cannot settle in any way, many partners, a life of severe instability and chaos, narcissistic, self-involved, all these things, the people getting sick, constant chronic conditions and complete inability to fix the causes, or sometimes without a cause, sick and no idea why. I know what it is like to suffer from mysterious health problems that nobody can find a solution for, and you spend money and time searching like crazy for the solution, and it is never fixed. Well, this is the thing. I managed to solve so many of my own problems, and I could see how the fundamental problem was untouched. I could see, finally, that the disease I had was not what I thought. It was not a disease of the body. You could say it was a disease of the soul. By peeling away every layer of my worldly concerns, one after the next, the picture became clearer and clearer that what ailed me is that I was not in my path, and my true path was to search for the ultimate truth. While I had been concerned with mundane pursuits, it all seemed somewhat dislocated. The wrongness could not be shaken. Then one day, I had cleared things well enough. I had, through intuition and a few incredible things that happened to me, realized that there was a lot more to reality than I previously thought. In the space of a few months, my entire view of what I was, what reality was completely broken down and rebuilt into a completely different thing. And that pursuit, the pursuit of understanding who I am, or rather what I am, is the only thing that felt right. Now, some people tell similar stories of having very troubled lives and then getting them fixed when they abandoned it all and became monks, for example. You probably have heard some stories like that. And some people tell stories of having a life of vice and then finding God in some established religion and they found their path. They say that they found Jesus or something like that. Now, I don't think my path is like either of these. I have not found a God of a given religion. The kinds of things I saw were way too wild for that, which is not at all to imply that their faith is wrong. And I don't think that my path is one of renouncing. I think there are some things I need to do here, very much on the real world. But I have shaken that sense of wrongness. And although I will not say that I'm already as stable as I would like to be, I'm in an incredibly better place because I did not lose any of the things that were right in my life, but somehow everything else started to fall into place. But much more than the material things, what really is falling into place is the sense that I am no longer in the wrong path for me. Most of the time, I feel like I'm one with my purpose, even though my purpose is not quite clear to me. So here's my conjecture. I think that a lot of people who are lost, who cannot stabilize themselves, we all have reasons for our troubles, different traumas, different stories, different diseases. But I think that fundamentally, we are people who need to be in the spiritual path. We are people who either were meant to align with some higher power, they were meant to find God and place themselves in His hands. And please translate this to the specific faith and God you imagine. Or we were meant to be searching for the ultimate truth of existence in some way. We were meant to be seekers. Not everyone is meant to be a seeker. I know so many people who are not lost, I know so many people who just seem to fit in their mundane lives. And I don't mean mundane in a negative way. I mean to say they feel well in their worldly lives. They have a family, a profession, a community, and those things just seem right to them. They seem enough. They have worldly problems and they fix worldly problems, and somehow they seem suited to their lives. They don't have existential angst. I think these people came here with this mission and they're living it. And some of us, perhaps, are also meant for a fairly worldly existence, but in some sense we are misaligned with that existence. Which is why when this type of people find God, they allow themselves to be guided into their path. So some of those who are lost will find themselves if they manage to find a way to accept some form of divine guidance into the right path. But some of us, and I think this is my case, are meant to dedicate their lives to the seeking. And if indeed the seeking is the only thing you have to do, then perhaps you should go to a monastery or an ashram or some place where people do only that. But not everyone is meant to be just a seeker. Some of us, and I think that's my case, still have something they need to do. In my normal life, people come to me with their problems, and somehow I can't help. Wherever I go, all my life since I was a teenager, this kept happening. And of all the things I ever did, answering these requests has always been the most natural. I hear sometimes of people who feel well when they help others. I cannot relate to that. I do not feel well. It is simply that there is no choice. In that moment, there is what needs to be done. There is no other option than that. There is no internal struggle, not even a choice. So this is this channel. I'm trying to offer the things I know. I'm trying to figure out how to make this as useful as possible. How to hit the exact level of depth. There is a lot in the internet to help every ailment, but overall there is very superficial knowledge of most things. I am trying to speak to those who are seeking something. The way I see it, either you already figured out that the spiritual pursuit is a fundamental part of your life and you want more clarity in some of the mysteries, and whatever I can provide in that direction, that is what I'm doing. But perhaps you are someone who is not on a spiritual path. You are simply someone who is still trying to find themselves or to get some level of stability. And all I can do to help clear your path, that's what I'll do. If it is with managing a condition of which I understand, like ADHD or trauma or chronic pain, or managing your life, the big decisions, your finances, or managing your relationships, marriage, kids, I have things to say about all of these. Decades of deep thought and investigation into such areas, plus my own professional life as one of the top academic researchers in the world in causality, that is, in the methodologies that allow scientists to determine how to change anything by changing your behavior. This is what this channel is and why it is chaotic. All order comes from chaos. All order is in fact an illusion. The truth is chaotic, not because it is messy, but because of the true meaning of chaos, because it is dynamic and fractal. Whenever we zoom into any piece of knowledge, there is just as much more to know, and it never ends. As this channel grows, there will be enough of a library for all tastes. Come with me if you are seeking for something.